What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be making a video for my people who want me to recommend some phones that, is fairly new, but still a reasonable price point, well under $1,000. We know most flagships these days are going to be, $1,000+ So I want to give you guys 5 phones that I think are still, these aren't this year new, but these are some pretty good phones that you should definitely check out with a pretty decent discount in the used refurbished marketplace. The first up is going to be the Galaxy S23 Ultra. All right, so first off is the Galaxy S23 Ultra. You need to cross check Amazon and eBay for the best prices, but if you pick this phone up in the used refurbished marketplace, and remember this is for the USA market, this is an excellent phone. The discount on this phone, it's come down to $629 for certified eBay refurbished, and then some sellers, they'll sell it for like $579 as well too. So this is an amazing phone, and honestly, when it first came out, was kind of close to nearly perfect. So it's not really that much different from the S24 Ultra, and this phone does have pretty much the same design. It's aluminum frame. It's IP68 as well too. You have the built-in S Pen as well, essentially the same design on here as well too. Now this one does have the dynamic AMOLED display at 6.8 inches, but it's a slightly curved display, which is something that I personally really liked. Samsung moved to a completely flat display. I just think it makes the phone look a little bit more premium than the the A series models and all the other phones and stuff like that. So I do like the curve, but it's got 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1750 nits peak brightness, full 1440p, 540 ppi, an absolutely beautiful panel. We know that Samsung makes some of the best panels on the market when we're looking at color and just the overall quality of the panel. Now this phone launched with Android 13 and got the Android 14 update. It's going to get years and years of more updates. So updates is something you do not have to worry about on this phone in particular. Because Samsung gave it a really good lifespan. So really excited about that. So it has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and this phone performance wise is very fast. It's super fast. It doesn't heat up when you're gaming. It's got pretty decent cooling capabilities. Pretty much whatever you're doing, even if you're a power user, it's just going to be a great experience. So I have nothing but good things to say about this. I was using it as my main phone when it came out as well too. Absolutely love this device. It's got 256 gigs of internal storage, and you can get the 12 gigabyte version of RAM pretty easily. So that's the one I would go for. The 8 gig, I'm sure, is fine too. But yeah, the speakers on the S23 Ultra are phenomenal as well too. Really great speakers on here. Great bass, good depth sound, crispy mids and highs, excellent sounding speakers on here. The fingerprint scanner is awesome as well. And then you also do have pretty much the same camera setup in the S23 Ultra, and it's got a 200 megapixel standard, which is awesome. 10 megapixel telephoto, 3 times optical, 10 megapixel periscope, 10 times optical, 12 megapixel ultra wide. It's got 8K 30 on here, 12 megapixel selfie with 4K 60. This is a phenomenal camera. It pretty much takes the same exact photos as an S24 Ultra. There's really no essential difference. Like, yeah, there's little minor differences and stuff with the specs, but in general, you honestly can't tell the difference between the photo and video quality. It's still pretty much the same for the most part. So I do want to talk about battery life, because this was the first Samsung flagship that I experienced with excellent battery life. So if you buy this phone, battery life is going to be really good as well too. It's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 45 watt charging, wireless and reverse wireless charging. There's a noticeable difference in battery life on this phone compared to all of the other previous Galaxy flagship. So this was like the first Galaxy flagship where I was really impressed with the battery life. So definitely give this phone a look. Alright, so next is going to be the OnePlus 12R. So this was a phenomenal phone when I was using it, and also it comes in at, you can get it $500 on Amazon, but if you get it straight from OnePlus, if you trade in any device, you get $100 off. So I think that is a really good deal if they're still doing it. But yeah, so it's absolutely a phenomenal phone here. I really like this phone at this price point. It's got the aluminum frame, it's glass back, it still looks really good. It's IP64 water and dust proof, so that's the only thing. It's not, IP68 or anything like that. But hardware wise, it looks beautiful, beautiful device. Definitely, looks like a flagship, feels like a flagship phone. So the display on here is a really nice display. It's a LTPO4 AMOLED display. It's 120 hertz HDR10 plus, and then you get up to 4500 nits peak brightness. It's a really bright display. If you're outdoors, if you're at the beach or something like that in direct sunlight, it's a really easy display to see. So it's got a 1264 by 2780 resolution at 450. The display is really sharp and the screen is easy to hold as well too. It also has a curved panel as well. I had really no issues with the display on here. It's a beautiful looking panel as well. So the screen on here is really awesome as well. So this phone does run Android 14 Oxygen OS, and I really liked Oxygen OS. I thought it looked really clean. It's not like One UI where you don't have a lot of the advanced power user stuff, especially take advantage like Good Lock and the other Samsung apps and stuff like that, or the AI. But I did appreciate that it was really clean and fast. So that's something that I really liked about it, and I like the way that it looks. You also do have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 on here, so this is a very, very fast phone. So when you're gaming on here, you're going to get great gaming settings, whether you're playing PUBG, Call of Duty, whatever. And overall, the speed of the phone is going to be really fast. The base model is 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. There's a 256 gig and 12 gigabyte version that you can get as well too. And the speakers on here are pretty good as well, so no issues with that. What's really cool about this phone is that it does have a infrared port as well too, which I thought was pretty cool. So that's just something to take advantage of if you're somebody who likes to control TVs and appliances and stuff like that. You also have a fingerprint scanner. Now, it's a pretty fast one. I had no issues with it, so it was pretty good for the most part. Now, the cameras on here was pretty interesting because I thought this was an area where they would cut the budget since it's such a high spec'd out phone. So this phone has a 50 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, but it does not have any type of telephoto lens on it or anything like that. It shoots in 4K 60 with a 16 megapixel selfie cam that only shoots in 1080 30. So the specs aren't super crazy on this phone as far as like video recording and having no telephoto, but it does still take really good stills. So I was really impressed with the still photography on here, even though the specs are, kind of underwhelming, but this is obviously where they had to cut the budget. But yeah, it still takes phenomenal photos, great color, good dynamic range, great detail. So I was really impressed with the overall stills themselves. And you do have on here excellent battery life. This is a really big battery at 5,500 milliamps. And then also there is no wireless charging on here. So that's something to take into consideration, but it does have really, really fast charging at 100 watts for the wired charging, and you have to give it points for actually putting the charger in the box. So this is a phone that I just really like, guys. Definitely check this phone out. All right, next is going to be the iPhone 13 Pro, or you can get the Pro Max for a little bit more, but the 13 Pro is going to cost you $480-ish in the used refurbished marketplace. And this is a phenomenal phone as well too. So it's still got a very modern design as well. It's got the stainless steel frame on here, IP68, dust and water resistant, and actually pretty comfortable to hold for the most part. And then also you do have on here the Super Retina XDR OLED display. It gets 1200 nits brightness as well as at 6.1 inches. It's 1170 by 2532 at 460 for the PPI. The only thing about this phone's display is that it does have the kind of older notch, so you don't have the dynamic island that you can interact with. But in my opinion, the dynamic island is not really that much, it's not really that interactive anyway, so it's not something that I would look at as a negative. But yeah, it still has a really nice, beautiful display on here. Really no issues at all with the quality of the screen. This phone did launch with iOS 15, but typically iPhones get around 6 years of software support, as we're seeing with the iPhone XS actually getting iOS 18. So this phone will have plenty of more updates, and this phone is still blazing fast. It got the Apple A15 chip. There's really nothing that this phone can't do that the newer iPhones can do. It's just a really, really fast phone. So yeah, so when it comes to gaming, performance wise, I'm not sure if they're bringing the Apple Intelligence AI stuff to the 13 series Pro models, but other than that, you're not really missing out on much as far as software wise. And overall, like I said, the speed, gaming performance is still going to be really great. You have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on the base model as well too. And then you also do have phenomenal speakers on here as well too. Really good amount of bass on here, a lot of depth to the sound. And yeah, so I had no issues with that. And of course, you're gonna have Face ID and all that good stuff. So the thing about this phone is that I still think the iPhone 13 Pro's cameras are still really good. It's got a 12 megapixel standard with a 12 megapixel telephoto. It's got 3 times optical with a 12 megapixel ultra wide. You also do have the 4K 60 video and the 12 megapixel selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60. It's still going to get you phenomenal photos and videos. So definitely, if you're, if you were to compare it to the 14 Pro or the 15 Pro, this is still pretty much on par as far as quality wise. So it's still going to get you some really, really good shots. And yeah, so no issues with the cameras. I was really impressed with the battery life when this phone first came out, because I guess the chip optimization was just really good, with this particular phone that year. But it has a 3095 milliamp hour battery. It's got wireless charging with the MagSafe, of course, and then your standard wireless charging. This phone has pretty good battery life. So if you really want the best battery life, you would get the Pro Max. But even just a smaller Pro version, it does do a really good job with screen on time. I never had this phone die on me in a day. So this is an awesome phone to pick. And like I said, you're getting essentially the same phone for much cheaper. All right, next is going to be the Pixel 8 Pro. So this is a current flagship, and I think this phone is really awesome to buy in the used refurbished marketplace, especially if you don't want to spend like $1,000, because this phone launched at, I believe, $900, and it has come down in price a little bit here. So you can pick these up for around $600 certified refurbished. It just really depends, but eBay's got them certified refurbished very good for like $569. So yeah, so I would definitely look into that, because this is a really good deal for a current year flagship, and this is one of the best Pixels they've made of all time, in my opinion. So I really love the design on here. It's an aluminum frame, it's IP68, it's very comfortable to hold. It has that classic Pixel design on here as well too. It's got that soft texture on the back, matte finish, and overall I just love the look and finish of the Pixel 8 Pro. It does have the LTPO OLED display at 6.7 inches. It's HDR10 plus, and it gets 2400 nits peak brightness at 1344 by 2992 resolution at 489 for the PPI. So overall, just a beautiful display. Great max brightness outdoors, so easily visible, and it's a completely flat panel as well too. So overall, beautiful panel on the Pixel 8 Pro. Now, one of the main selling points with these Pixel phones is that you get to experience Android 14, the stock version, and also you get to experience the beta software. So like Android 15 beta just came out, you can experience it first on the Pixels. And yeah, so that's something that I really like. If you want a clean Google experience, then definitely you're gonna buy a Pixel. So the Google Tensor G3 processor on here is pretty good. Now, I don't have any issues personally with performance and gaming on here. I don't have really any overheating problems. Now, I wouldn't necessarily buy this phone for gaming. If you really wanted like a gaming phone, you would get the S23 Ultra. It's a little bit better optimized for gaming. It'll give you better settings in PUBG and other games and stuff like that. But this phone, as a casual gamer, it still does fine. You can play HDR Extreme, no issues at all. So performance on the Pixel is really good, and it does all the AI stuff and everything really quickly. So this phone has really no performance issues for me personally. So you do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on that base model. The speakers are really nice on here, great bass quality, good mids and highs, overall clean sound. You do have the under the display fingerprint sensor, which works fine. And what's interesting is that they threw in a thermometer on here, which I completely always forget about, but it is on here. It does work decently. It's not as accurate as like a traditional one, but it does work, right? It's close. So that was pretty cool. It's kind of random that they did that though. But yeah, so this phone is known for having excellent cameras. I still think it takes the best stills on this list, and I love the Google image processing on here. It's got a 50 megapixel standard, 48 megapixel telephoto, 5 times optical with a 48 megapixel ultra wide. You can shoot in 4K 60 on the front and back with a 10.5 megapixel selfie cam. Google just does a great job with skin tones. It's something that I've always appreciated as well too. And yeah, I just love the Google image editor as well. It's really crisp and clean. Yeah, I just love everything about the cameras and how it takes photos. I still think it takes some again the best stills that you can find, whether you're getting an iPhone, Galaxy, whatever. I really like how the photos come out. So definitely, if you're looking for an excellent camera phone, honestly, you could go with any Pixel. Like you can legit get like a Pixel 6a and still get top notch stills. It's really impressive how Google's able to do that. All right, so the battery life on here is pretty decent. It's a 5050 milliamp hour battery, 30-watt charging with 23-watt wireless and reverse wireless charging. This phone definitely lasts me a day. Now it's not better than the S23 Ultra, but it does get the job done. So I wouldn't worry about the battery life for the most part. So it's a very good phone to consider, especially at this price point is pretty decent, and it's only going to come down in price. All of these phones are going to keep coming down in price as the year goes on. All right, so last is the Asus Zenfone 9. This phone has come down in price a little bit. I think this is a really interesting phone for anyone who wants something modern that's compact. So yeah, so this is like $400 in the used refurbished marketplace. It's a really good phone. I really liked this phone when it first came out. Now it does have a plastic back, but they do the plastic really well. It's got a textured back and it just feels nice. It doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. It's got the aluminum frame. It's IP68 dust and water resistant, and like I said, it's a smaller phone, so it's a little bit easier to hold. It has a 5.9-inch Super AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1100 nits for the brightness, and then it's 1080p 445 for the PPI. So like I said, this is a phone that you can easily one hand because it is much smaller than the other phones on this list. And yeah, it's a phone that's very comfortable. So if you have smaller hands, this is a phone that you really will enjoy. And the display looks phenomenal on here as well too. Now this phone, it got the Android 13 update, I believe. So hopefully it gets this Android 14 update. And then you also do have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on here as well too. So it's a pretty fast phone. I really had no issues performance wise with this phone. I was able to play PUBG and do whatever on this phone without any performance or overheating problems. It's got 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have really good speakers on this phone. I was really impressed with the speakers. They're super loud bass on here, especially considering the size of this phone. And then what's really cool about this phone is that you do have a headphone jack on here as well too. So anybody who wants to use a traditional headphones, you can use these, and yeah, it's just a really awesome. It's kind of like a rare feature these days as well too. And what I really like is that the fingerprint side mounted on here. It's a physical one, so it's absolutely awesome. I really like it. It just feels more natural to me as well too. And then the cameras on here. So it does have a 50 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. You can shoot an 8K24 and a 12 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 30. This phone took really good selfies and really good stills as well too. That was something that I noticed on here, so I was not disappointed with the cameras at all. Yes, you are missing a telephoto lens and stuff like that, but overall the image quality I thought was really good. Great detail, great colors, and I was overall really happy with how crisp the photos came out. So you would think that a phone that is small like this would have bad battery life, but this phone's battery life was actually really good. I think that was actually the main highlight of this phone, and like it was very surprising when I first got it. It's got a 4300 milliamp hour battery, 30-watt charging with 5-watt reverse wire charging. So no wireless charging, unfortunately, but it just has really good battery life considering the size of this phone. So absolutely, Asus did a fantastic job with that. So this is overall a kind of a unique phone in 2024. It's got a headphone jack. It's kind of small, being under 6 inches. And yeah, it's a phone that I just really enjoyed the Asus software. It's not really too much caked on. It's kind of like stock Android with a little bit of, things added on top. But yeah, I really like this phone. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.